June 15, 2026, Atlanta, Georgia. Inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, one of the most powerful national teams on the planet, the reigning European champions Spain, is preparing to take on a country most of the world couldn't find on a map, Cape Verde, an archipelago of 10 volcanic islands scattered in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of West Africa. Population under 600,000 people. FIFA ranking 67th in the world. Spain, they're ranked number 2. And standing between the posts for Cape Verde, a man whose real name barely anyone knew, was a goalkeeper playing only in the Portuguese second division, who hadn't turned professional until he was 25 years old, who had at most 50,000 followers on Instagram, a man nicknamed after his grandmother. By the time this match was over, his Instagram would have 4 million followers. By the time this match was over, he would have made the 4th most statistically shocking result in World Cup history. By the time this match was over, a man who grew up being mocked for running home to his grandparents would have the entire world saying his name, Vozinha. To understand who Vozinha is and why Monday night meant what it did, you have to start at the beginning. Josimar José Evora Diaz was born on June 3, 1986, in Mindelo, on the island of São Vicente in Cape Verde. His father was in military service when he was born. His mother had to work constantly to survive, and so from the very beginning of his life, Josimar was raised not by his parents, but by his grandparents. He grew up on the streets of Mindelo, playing football every day, but he was younger and smaller than the older boys in the neighborhood, and they would beat him in games, knock him around, and send him home frustrated and angry. And every time he came storming home, red-faced and furious, his grandparents would be there. The older boys noticed, and they started taunting him. They'd say, he's going home to his vô, the Portuguese word for grandmother. They called him Vozinha, little grandmother, a nickname designed to embarrass him. He hated it at first. He told FIFA, "I didn't like it, I went crazy." But the name stuck. And when he eventually left Cape Verde to pursue his football career, arriving at an Angolan club where a different player shared his real first name, Josimar, he made a decision. He put Vozinha on the back of his shirt. The name the older boys gave him to mock him became his identity, his brand. The name known in football dressing rooms from Angola to Cyprus to Slovakia to Portugal. The grandparents who raised him were in the nickname. They were always there with him. As a young player on São Vicente, Vozinha was often overlooked by coaches because he was too small. A growth spurt in his late teens changed that. But by then he was already behind most of his peers on the development curve. He didn't turn professional until he was 25 years old, starting at Angolan club Progresso. From Angola, his career took him across 3 continents over nearly 2 decades: Moldova, Cyprus, Slovakia, and finally Portugal. He spent 5 seasons at AEL Limassol in Cyprus, racking up over 140 appearances. He's currently at Chaves, playing in Liga Portugal 2, the second division. He is not a star of the European game. He is not at a Champions League club. He is a journeyman keeper, experienced, dedicated, technically accomplished, who has spent his entire career grinding, saving, surviving, and waiting for this. Cape Verde had never qualified for a FIFA World Cup before 2026, not once. And the road to Atlanta was not straightforward. In qualification, the Blue Sharks, Cape Verde's beloved nickname, came agonizingly close on multiple occasions. There was even a match where a late goal in injury time was disallowed by a controversial offside call, denying them what would have been a famous comeback win. But they kept going. Coach Bubista kept faith in his squad, and Vozinha, already a veteran, already dreaming of this since childhood, stayed, because there were moments, he admitted, when he thought about walking away from the national team. The World Cup felt impossibly far away. The sacrifices required to keep his body in shape, to keep flying to matches while playing in lower divisions, to keep believing, they were immense. But he didn't quit. He told himself, not yet, not until the dream is dead. When Cape Verde finally secured qualification in October 2025, in a moment that sent the country into eruption, Vozinha wept on the pitch. He told reporters that he had been dreaming of this moment since I was a child. That qualification, he said, was a victory for all the Cape Verdean people. The entire archipelago celebrated. Cape Verde was going to the World Cup for the first time in their history. And on that night, Vozinha, now 39, a month away from turning 40, was going with them. He turned 40 on June 3, 2026. 12 days later, he walked out at Mercedes-Benz Stadium to face Spain. Spain arrived at Group H as one of the favorites for the entire tournament, the reigning European champions, ranked second in the world, loaded with generational talent. Cape Verde arrived as the 67th ranked team in the world, making their first ever World Cup appearance. The gap between these two teams on paper was not just large, it was almost incomprehensible. The match began, and Spain did exactly what everyone expected. They pressed, they dominated, they controlled the ball for nearly 75% of the game. They forced corner after corner. They sent 27 shots toward the Cape Verde goal, with 7 arriving on target and an expected goals total of 2.29, meaning statistically, Spain should have scored more than twice. Vozinha stopped all of it. He saved 7 times, 6 of those from inside the penalty area. He denied Mikel Oyarzabal. He kept out efforts from Ferran Torres, Pedri, Fabian Ruiz, Marc Cucurella, Aymeric Laporte, Mikel Merino. Then, the moment that made the world stop. Oyarzabal rose for a looping header that looked, for every fraction of a second it was in the air, like it was going into the back of the net. The angle, the pace, the trajectory. Virtually everyone watching thought it was a goal. Vozinha got there. Spain brought on Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams in the second half, 2 of the most electric young attackers in world football, and still nothing. When the final whistle blew, Cape Verde had done it. A goalless draw against Spain, one of the most stunning results in the history of the tournament. The 4th most shocking result in World Cup history, based on the FIFA rankings gap between the two teams. And Vozinha, who had stood between the posts for 90 minutes like a wall that Spain simply could not breach, dropped to his knees and cried. After the match, Vozinha faced the media, and what he said next went beyond football. He had cried in goal after the final whistle, and reporters asked why. His answer was not what anyone expected. He said, "I cried because I grew up with my grandparents when I was a kid, and they could not be there. They passed away a few years ago." He paused and then continued. "My mum could not be here either due to a visa issue and the money we had to pay for it. We did not manage to do this in time." His mother, alive, watching from an island in the Atlantic Ocean, couldn't make it to Atlanta because the visa application process was too slow and too expensive. She missed the most important night of her son's life because of paperwork and costs. The grandparents who gave him his nickname, gone. The mother who sacrificed everything, watching from thousands of miles away. But Vozinha did not dwell. He had one more thing to say, and he said it for every person back home in Cape Verde. He said, "This is a message of thank you to everybody in Cape Verde. We are very happy after this. This group of players have worked a lot to live this moment. It's a day to be proud and satisfied. I worked for all my life for this moment, for this dream. A lot of generations in the past was dreaming with this. They did not shift. Now, the dream come true." Before kickoff on June 15th, Vozinha had around 50,000 followers on Instagram, a respectable number for a lower division keeper in Portugal. By the time he made his first save, the follower count was already climbing. By halftime, it had passed 1 million, and here's the reason it happened so fast. In Brazil, the streaming platform Cazé TV, who held the World Cup broadcast rights, were watching the match just like everyone else. They saw this man, they heard his story, they learned his nickname, and they did something extraordinary. They urged their millions of Brazilian viewers to follow him on Instagram right now, during the match. Live on air. Brazil and Cape Verde share deep cultural and linguistic connections. Both are Portuguese-speaking nations. The story of Vozinha, raised by his grandparents, carrying the nickname Granny, playing in a second division and shutting out Spain at 40 years old, that story hit Brazilian viewers like a freight train. By full-time, Vozinha had gone from 50,000 followers to over 2 million, while the match was still being broadcast, and it kept climbing. Within hours of the final whistle, he had crossed 4 million. By the next morning, reports were citing nearly 4,000% growth in his following. A goalkeeper playing in the Portuguese second division became one of the most followed athletes on Instagram in the space of 90 minutes. His teammates were equally overwhelmed. Defender Pico Lopez told reporters he lives and breathes Cape Verde. He's always on us to keep us on time. But that's what he does. He pushes us to be better. And you saw it today. He leads by example. And the man himself, the keeper who spent his whole career being overlooked, addressed the press in a way that was completely, utterly, unmistakably him. He said, "We deserve to be here today. A great game against Spain because it's one of the best national teams in the world." Simple, Proud, no exaggeration, no performance, just a man who had waited 40 years for a stage, and when he got it, used every second of it. Let's just put what Vozinha did on June 15th into some historical context, because the numbers are extraordinary. With this clean sheet, Vozinha became the third oldest goalkeeper in history to keep a clean sheet in a men's World Cup match, behind only England's legendary Peter Shilton, who was 40 years and 281 days old at the 1990 World Cup, and Italy's Dino Zoff, who was 40 years and 130 days old when he lifted the 1982 World Cup trophy. According to OptaJoe, only one goalkeeper aged 40 or over has made more saves in a single World Cup match since 1966, Northern Ireland's Pat Jennings in 1986. That is the company he is in now: Shilton, Zoff, Jennings, and Vozinha. He also became the second oldest man ever to make his World Cup debut, and the oldest player to appear at a World Cup for a team playing their first ever match at the tournament. He also prevented 1.46 expected goals according to SofaScore data, meaning statistically he was responsible for personally overperforming expectations by nearly a goal and a half. For a team making their World Cup debut against a country ranked 65 places above them, those numbers represent one of the greatest individual goalkeeping performances in the tournament's history. FIFA agreed. Vozinha was named the official superior player of the match, man of the match, the moment the final whistle went. This year, 2026, marks the 50th anniversary of Cape Verde's independence from Portugal. Coach Bubista said it himself after the qualification. It's a special moment in this celebration of the 50th anniversary of our independence. It's a victory for all the Cape Verdean people, and above all, a victory for those who fought for our independence. A nation that gained independence 50 years ago, that spent decades just trying to be seen on the football map. That went to 4 Africa Cup of Nations tournaments, reached the quarterfinals twice, built something quietly and consistently while the world wasn't paying much attention. And now, at their very first World Cup, they held Spain to a draw. Their goalkeeper is one of the most followed athletes on Instagram. Their story is on the front pages of sports media from Atlanta to Tokyo to Lagos to São Paulo. Cape Verde still has Uruguay and Saudi Arabia to play in Group H. The dream of reaching the knockout rounds is alive, genuinely, mathematically, tangibly alive. And standing between the posts for every one of those matches will be a 40-year-old man from Mindelo who was raised by his grandparents and refused to stop believing. Football, at its very best, does something that almost nothing else can. It takes a man from a small island, raised by his grandparents, mocked by older kids in the street, overlooked for most of his youth, grinding through lower leagues across 4 countries, and puts him on the biggest stage in the world. And he is ready. Because he was always ready. He was just waiting for the door to open. Vozinha's grandparents are gone. His mother couldn't get a visa in time, but in some way, through a nickname that was given to embarrass a small boy who kept running home, they were all there in Atlanta on June 15, 2026. Every time the world says his name, they remember them too. That's Vozinha, that's Cape Verde. And this story is only just getting started. If this gave you chills, smash the like button, share it with someone who loves football, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Drop a comment. Do you think Cape Verde can make it out of Group H? I want to know what you think. I'll see you for the next one.